Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast. It's good to see you. Today's episode is another true crime podcast episode. Now this one I'm going to be giving you a couple of warnings through the whole podcast episode. For this going to be a little darker, and fortunately, I will be going into details of the injuries of these two people who have sadly passed away. And if you're a bit squeamish and you're not into that, I will be saying before I'm going to be reading out the injuries, you can skip the few minutes of the podcast. So I will be also dotting them down in the show notes so you can check what parts to skip, just in case, because I know there's some squeamish people out there, and I totally get it. Even for me, reading this out tonight is a little bit uncomfortable, but I feel like you need to get to know them and what happened, and it is very sad story. But this is the story of the uncovering of the truth behind the Blaine Brothers murders. So, let's get into it. Castlebar is a county town in County Mayo in Ireland. Part of the Connacht province, known for its settlement of the Debarry Castle, which was built in Wayford 1235 by a Norman adventurer. Also known for hosting Michael Davitt's of Strad in Mayo for finding the Irish Land League in the Imperial Hotel in Castlebar in 1879. Now, the Land of the League Imperial was when farmers were fighting against the English. It was for when they were renting out land. Now, they also have one of the oldest bars in Ireland, with John McHale's pub located in New Line, along having a transport railway going from Dublin and back with the Westport service, and even had a commercial airport, but now is used for a retail park, so it's no longer an airport. The only airport is Knock in Mayo. Also, notably, there's couple of well-known people from Mayo, from Castlebar, which are Charles Haughey and Etta Kennedy, who were two of Ireland's former prime ministers. We call them Taoiseachs here. Book author Sally Rooney, known for the hits Normal People and Conversation with Friends, which then were turned into programs and became a mega hit during the pandemic, with Normal People, with Paul Mescal. You definitely know that name. And of course with Conversation with Friends, that was another program turned in, that was, I think, broadcasted last year. I might have forgotten what year it was, but it was around that time. It wasn't my cup of tea, but anyway. And of course, last year's 2023 living meme, anti-LGBT activist Enoch Burke. If you don't know who he is and why he's a meme, check it up on Twitter /X. You would see the photo memes of him up there. But we're not talking about these people. Don't worry. Also, Castlebar is usually a quiet town, but it has its bonuses. They have a small theatre called the Royal Theatre, which is also a hotel, fun fact. Has lovely spots of food, and even has an adventure games and escape room called Inside Castlebar. Who knew? But here is the deets. On the 10th of July in 2013, 11 years ago, if anyone wants the specific timeline, Castlebar was covered in a grey cloud of sadness when two locals of their own, two brothers, Jack and Tommy Blaine, were murdered in their home. Jack Blaine was born in 1937, and his younger brother, Tommy, was born in 1944. We do not have the dates of their birth or the month. It was never disclosed, but their mother, Delia Blaine, formerly known as Dunn, passed away at a great age of 90 on the 26th of May 1995, when the two brothers were 58 and 51. Now, the two brothers lived in England for a time during the 60s until Jack had a serious accident in a building site, which the two brothers returned to Ireland to take care of their mother once he recovered from his injuries. But due with the injury and the accident, he gained a hunch. Their cousin Pat Dunn said that Jack Blaine had a speech impediment and was partially blind, but neither of the two brothers wanted to make a fuss. They were among the most vulnerable in the society, but Tom had schizophrenic. I can't pronounce it, but I'm sorry. You know what I'm on about. Including his Jack had the hunchback. Tom had the hunchback. Jack had dementia and a tremor. They were both under care of the HSC, which is our healthcare, and Home Help, which came to their house in New Antrim Street in Castlebar 3 times a day. Home Help is basically care worker, I guess. You get what I mean. So their tattoos everything was alright. Along with that, the two brothers weren't drinkers, smokers. They were religious, and people always kept an eye on them. But I'm going to say this now: they were tea lovers. They loved their tea. Now, their cousin was saying that, quotation, "The notepad I used to communicate with my cousins instead of shouting in their ears because it was no longer useful because they were both deaf. He will miss that." He also said, "I'm not seeing Tommy sitting in his chair with a smile is a terrible loss." He said they weren't bothered with television or any luxuries, but enjoyed simple things. Of course, tea. Now, before I start with what happened on that night the Blaine brothers died, I am going to give you a warning and advice, like I said at the start of the episode, because I know there's some faint-hearted people that won't be used to the stuff, so discretion is advised. I'm using those words. Oh my god, I've always wanted to use them. Alright, okay, back to serious. Okay, so it's midnight, the 10th of July. Tommy Blaine leaves the local publican bar called Rocky's Bar, which is literally right across from their home on New Antrim Street. Alan Cawley is a man in his 30s. He was just released from Castlerea prison in County Roscommon 4 days prior. He was staying in a bread and breakfast in Castlebar. He had a couple of drinks in local bars, having 3 pints of Guinness. And he spoke to the locals, saying that he was claiming to be a doctor who was going to be carrying out 2 autopsies, there we go, in the town. At midnight, Cawley met Jack out on the street, and on CTV it was shown that Cawley put his arm around Jack's shoulder, one of the Blaine brothers, just to remind you, and then entered into the two brothers' homes. Cawley told the Gardaí that he spent 20 minutes upstairs searching for prescription drugs. He said he came downstairs and Jack Blaine was standing there. He picked up a shovel and beat him with it. Cawley said that made his way to the door, but then saw Thomas Blaine, the other brother, who was at home in front of the house. He then said he thought that they were living together. Maybe they were child molesters. He then beat Thomas with a stick about 25 times. And Cawley then, and this is the brutal part, and this gets me every time when I'm reading it and seeing it in articles, the poor man, I just feel it. He poured boiling water on the helpless victim on his private parts. He then left after an hour of entering the home, putting sunglasses on and walking back to his bread and breakfast. Now, the home help for the Blaine brothers came to their house at 7:15 in the morning and discovered the 2 men who suffered the horrendous injuries. Rocky Moran, who was the publican of the Rocky Bar right across, heard a woman screaming, rushed over to the Blaine brothers' house to see the home help, said, "Oh, he's murdered." They then immediately called the Gardaí. Detective Sergeant Gary Walsh looked at the CTV from the Roxy's Bar. I believe that's what I think where the CTV came from, or it could be from any one of the houses on the street. Then led to arrest of Cawley. Alan Cawley of Four Winds, Curbla in Ballina in County Mayo admitted the killings then. Now, I'm going to read the forensics part, and this is very detailed, so the next few minutes will be advised. So this is the more detailed stuff I was going to say. Okay, are you ready? Okay. So, the forensic experts, sorry, I'm tired today. I probably shouldn't have done this on a tired day, but I want to do this. Okay. So, forensic experts noted that there was blood on the ceiling and on all four walls of Tom Blaine's bedroom. He had been attacked while he was in his bed. The blood patterns were found in the backyard, indicated that Jack Blaine had been assaulted while he was lying on the ground. Jack Blaine's blood was found on a both rusty shovel and a broken handle, as it was well known as his walking stick, all of which it was near his body. His blood were also found on the shovel on the broken handle. A post-mortem exam found that there were been an overkill in attack. Thomas Blaine's cause of death was blood loss, brain trauma, chest trauma, choking on blood due to the blunt injuries to his head, face and chest. Contributory factors were blunt trauma on his limbs, fragments of his Adam apple, right wrist and hand bones. There were significant fractures to his skull, which was fragmented in one area, further fractures of his breastbone, multiple in his ribs, and a bone in each hand. He could have been struck up to 12 times to the head, 5 times to the chest, 6 or more times on the hands and arms, and a number of times to the hip and thigh. Considerable force was being needed to inflict these skull injuries. The cause of his brothers, Jack Blaine's death, was blunt force trauma to the head, which was caused blood loss, brain injury, obstruction of breathing due to facial injuries, a scalding injury, and the blunt trauma to his chest. Limbs were contributional fractures. He had multiple fractures to his skull. A piece of bone had become embedded into his brain, which bruised. One of his teeth was dislodged from the socket and was found in his stomach, which meant he swallowed and inhaled the blood from his injuries. Hot liquid was poured and thrown onto his skin, which his upper clothing was pulled up to expose his adderdom, and lower clothing pulled down to his exposed genitalia area. So that's all the injuries. So that's gone. It's 3 minutes. If you're running, we're back now. So when the court case was brought, now I couldn't find the actual date. Now I'm using this part of the Irish Examiner article, which was posted on the 27th of July. Now they've said that according to Alan Cawley, the murderer, so he pleaded not guilty to murdering them on the 10th of July in 2013 at the street. He argued that he had 3 mental disorders that had been diminished on his responsibility and was therefore entitled to a manslaughter verdict. Now, the court said that he was diagnosed with attention defect hyperactivity disorder, as we all know as ADHD, and other disorders as a child. Now, he had also been diagnosed with 2 personality disorders as an adult and was often on heavy medication and developed a dependency of alcohol and prescription drugs and was in and out of both hospital and prison. He claimed that this man, who the court heard was incontinent, was rubbing his genitals, and Cawley claimed that he thought he was deceased was trying to make a sexual advance on him. Cawley said the jury was out on his own sexuality and said that he was sick of men wanting to show the deceased that men couldn't always get what they wanted, and when he decided to murder the 2 brothers cold-bloodedly. Cawley's legal team raised the partial defence of diminished responsibility, which can reduce to murder to manslaughter. Mr. Justice Paul Cawley explained that to the jury for what happened, that had been evidence that was accused suffering from a mental disorder at the time of the killing, and that the disorder must be significantly diminished as his responsibility of acts. Now, the prosecution then called the forensic psychiatrist in rebuttal. Her opinion was that he wasn't suffering ADHD at the time. She accepted that he had 2 personality disorders, but her opinion was they did not constitute the mental disorders within the meaning of the law, as they did not impair the capacity. Justice Coffey informed the jurors that the relevant acts said nothing about capacity, and that they were, quotations, at large, deciding that they were mental disorders within the meaning of the act. He then told them if they were satisfied of the defence on the balance of probabilities, oh my god, they must return a verdict of not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. He then decided that it was not oh my god, today I can't talk. Not satisfied, they should not find the accused guilty. 4 women and 8 men were not satisfied, and following an hour and 42 minutes deliberating, they resulted a unanimous verdict of guilty on both counts. The jury remained in the box while the deceased men's first cousin delivered a victim pact statement. Justice Coffey said that their murderer was to stand. The law demands a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment, which I oppose. He said the killings were at Watson and they were savage. I can only express my sympathy to the family of Jack and Tommy Blaine. Coffey was then led away and he was sent to start his sentence of life. And that is the death and the court case. And of course, 11 years on now to the 2 brothers passing. The Castle Bar remembers the brothers, and so does Duns, who are the cousins. May they both rest in peace. I remember hearing this when I was younger, so at the time, and I don't come at my age. I might have forgotten my age. Have I? Yes, I was 17. But I remember briefly on hearing about this, about these 2 murders, and unfortunately, since then, there has been another 2 murders in rural Ireland, which, you know, it's upsetting to see. Which I think, where is it? Mayo? Oh no, sorry, it was up in Sligo. The 2 murders of Aidan Moffitt and Michael Sneen. I've been reading a bit more about like the deaths in Ireland, and I'm not going to lie that there's quite a few murders in Ireland of what happened to be LGBT related, of men getting killed because of their sexuality. Obviously this isn't the murderer believed they were molesters and thinking they were gay, and they were trying it on him, which they weren't. They were both pensioners and had special ability, or they were disabled, and to think that they were is really unfortunate. Obviously at the time he was obviously so medicated on drugs and drink, he thought they were, but you know, due to mental health as well. It is sad, and I really do feel about these 2 men. I don't know them, obviously. I think there was very little info on the 2 brothers, but you can tell from the way their cousin talked, and you can read in the articles I will have in the show notes what they were like, and it just seemed 2 quiet men who were happy with the most simple things. And of course it's not Barry's tea, but I presume it was Barry's tea, you know. They were tea lovers, and you know, it's sad to think, and I kind of think with the elderly, you know, if one brother passed away, the other one would be on their own, and I would feel sad about that. But you know, at least the two of them are both in heaven together, and they're with their mother. There was no mentions of their father, so, but yeah, may they both rest in peace, and they will forever be remembered. And that is the two story. Well, no, that's the story of the Blaine Brothers. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry this is rambling now a little bit at the end, but make sure to listen to any of the older podcast episodes I have if you are new. Make sure to follow on the socials, and of course I'm going to try to be more active on Instagram again and X. I want to try to get this podcast more out there this year in 2024 and try to be more active. So, and I was saying on Instagram that I'm going to be doing two kind of topics mostly. That will be sports and true crime on here. So it's a bit of a mixture. It's very random. But they are the two things I kind of really listen to when I'm listening to podcasts. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you're well. And I will chat to you when I'm back with another episode. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.